Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar. Then we'll have a look at Twitter, have a look at what's coming out from the Met Office regarding Storm Franklin and what's been happening over the next few days. We'll have a look at the UK Met Office run, and we'll finish up having a look at the GFS GM and GFS Ensembles. Have a look at the next couple of weeks, as although Storm Franklin has passed now and is over towards Europe, it does look like we're still going to have some very stormy weather to end February, and potentially even some more named storms as well. We've had 3 in the last week, and it's possible we could see even more incoming. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to like and subscribe, and remember to follow on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Also do check out channel membership, that link's in the description as well. Now if we do have a look at the live radar, you can see this hook out towards Norway, Sweden and Finland, and that is the centre now of Storm Franklin, which is moving out eastwards and has cleared the UK. Now there's still quite a few showers around Europe and quite a heavy rain and snow in Scandinavia, but for the UK we just have a few smattering of showers around, some across southern Scotland, northeast England, and a few down in the southeastern London area, but they should fade away over the course of the next sort of few hours as we are under a brief bump of high pressure. But it is brief, and I definitely and I emphasise it is brief, as low pressure is waiting in the wings once again to bring in more rain, heavy rain with that, and does look like we could be even seeing another squall line. The squall feature yesterday with Storm Franklin was intense, as I must say. Some of the images I've seen from that were truly amazing. And again, just another reminder, if there is a squall line coming through, please do stay indoors. It is really quite dangerous. But on the live radar, nothing is happening, nothing too much is happening at the moment, and we actually don't have any weather warnings issued at this current moment. I do suspect there will be some more issued over the coming days, but as I'm recording this, we don't have any yellow or amber warnings or red warnings issued by the Met Office, even for the next few days. But as I said, I do suspect there will be some incoming, so make sure you do stay tuned. So we do go over to the Met Office Twitter page. Now, if we do briefly have a look at this satellite loop they released earlier. Now, if we do run it through, you can see the centre of Storm Franklin, which is now moving away, and you can see it's sort of a complex low. So you can see the actual centre of Storm Franklin is sort of towards Northern Europe, Netherlands, Denmark, that area, as I'm recording this, of course, because this is a couple of hours ago, and you can see the big hook elsewhere. Those are the associated weather fronts bringing that snow to Scandinavia and heavy rain across Europe. And behind that, we can see we're into a bit of a northerly flow, brief bump of high pressure. You can see not too many clouds there, a few clouds, but you can see this big clump. If I do run it on a little bit, big clump towards southern Iceland, and that is the next weather system pushing in. You can see the warm front and the cold front associated with it, and we are going to be seeing, again, some very heavy rain and most likely another squall line. A lot of up and down temperatures as well, could be turning much colder towards the end of the week as well. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Now, if we do have a look at the max gusts, now these are the wind gusts from earlier this morning, because of course Storm Franklin, the warnings expired earlier today, and warning expired at 7 a.m. You can see widely mid to high 70s for many areas further northwards. Now, I've seen some people say that Storm Franklin has actually been quite a bit more intense than Storm Eunice was for their area, especially northern areas. And some people were saying, why is Storm Eunice saw an amber warning and Storm Franklin didn't? Well, one thing I would say is probably Storm Franklin has probably been a little bit more intense than expected in terms of wind gusts, maybe 5 to 10 miles per hour faster than expected, and Storm Eunice was maybe 5 to 10 miles per hour slower than expected, especially further northwards. It was still disruptive, and what that meant is Storm Franklin was forecast as 60 miles per hour, 65 miles per hour, Eunice 75, 80, and in those areas, Storm Eunice wasn't quite that strong, so more widespread winds around 70, and Storm Franklin was slightly stronger, more winds around 70 miles per hour. So you can see how just slight uncertainties that we have within the warnings, that they're always taken into account. I mean, that In the end, the storms are actually quite similar in strength for northern England. For the south, of course, Storm Eunice was by far stronger, as that's where the centre, the core of the winds went through. But the northern areas, Storm Franklin was on par really with Storm Eunice, giving significant conditions. Yes, there was only a yellow warning in force, but it was still quite a severe system. But has luckily now moved away. Still looks like it's going to be unsettled and potentially stormy later this week, but at least we've got a few days of a lull now where we don't have any significant weather coming on. By no means is it going quiet and settled. It still is going to be quite wild out there, but nowhere near as unsettled as it has been recently. So hopefully that can help the flooding situation that's going on in some regions, and also can help repair any damage to power lines, infrastructure from the wind. Now, if we also now have a look at the UK Met Office run, have a look at precipitation, wind speeds and temperature. Now, if we do run through, you can see those showers fading away over the course of today. Brief bump of high pressure, but as I said, by this evening, weather fronts approaching by the early hours. That heavy, squally rain is pushing into western parts of Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Republic of Ireland. And by rush hour in the morning, that is going to be spreading in through many areas of England and Wales. Does it look like it might be sort of degrading away on this latest run? So, a bit of a squally feature for western and northern areas, but degrading away as it moves southeastwards, bringing a chilly air mass behind, quite a few showers further northwards. So, you can see, not quite as lively as recently, but it's still going to be quite unsettled. And by the end of this week, another feature moving through, another squall line potentially, with big, beefy, wintry showers moving behind, really unstable cold air mass pushing through there, and more heavy precipitation, some turning to snow, voicing more very unsettled conditions further northwards, and does look like we could be seeing more stormy conditions. As we'll see with the GFS and GEM run at the end of the video, we'll see why it's not guaranteed to be very stormy. High pressure could win out. There's a bit of a battleground going between high pressure towards Europe and Scandinavia and low pressure out to the Atlantic. By no means is it going to be massive change, but it may just mean the storm tracks push slightly further northwards and westwards, reducing the wind speeds further southwards and eastwards, and of course reducing the wind speeds further northwards as well, with those centre of the lows more out to sea. But we'll have to see that at the end of the video. Now, if we have a look at the wind gusts, it's going to remain pretty strong. You can see the wind gusts earlier this morning, sort of 60, 70 miles per hour, but they fade away quite quickly. Still very blustery out there, 30, 40 miles per hour. Still quite a windy day, but in comparison to recently, nothing too crazy. As those weather fronts arrive this evening in the squall line, we could see again gusts along that squall line of 50, 60 miles per hour, very disruptive. Further northwards still, 60 miles per hour, quite widely. Not reaching the peaks, of course, of the named storms, but we see another weather front push through. Again, could provide 60, 70 miles per hour in a few areas in the west, but as it moves southeastward, does degrade away. And by Thursday, another area of strong winds for Northern Ireland and potentially parts of western Scotland. And as we head towards the end of the week, we see another real big area of very strong winds pushing into the far northwest. Now, as I said, those storm tracks are being pushed slightly further northwards and westwards, which could mean that the strongest winds stay offshore. But it is very much an if. It's not guaranteed by any means, and we'll have to see exactly how it does play out. But it does look like there will be still a lot of stormy weather upcoming, but whether it's more named storms is the uncertainty at this stage. Of course, if we see amber warnings in force for wind, I do suspect it will be a named storm. At this stage, definitely look like yellow warnings would be in force for the winds coming up over the next 5 days or so. But amber warnings will only really be issued if we have high likelihood of widely 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, which at this stage is possible, but not guaranteed by any means. Now, if we do have a look at the temperatures, as we've seen recently, they are going to be very much up and down. Now, you can see really quite chilly earlier it was quite chilly earlier this morning, 3-4 degrees, but over the course of the day, it is getting a little bit milder. 10 degrees in the south, quite a lot colder further northwards, but there is a bit of snow on the ground, as we saw significant snow from some of the showers behind Storm Franklin yesterday over the higher ground. Not too unusual for this time of year, but we've been pretty snow-starved so far this winter, so it was interesting seeing some of those videos and images on Twitter yesterday of heavy snow over the Highlands, places like Braemar, etc. Now, if we do move through, you see tonight temperatures are not going to drop down too cold, maybe 4 or 5 degrees before we see a bit of a warm sector move through. So 9-10 degrees by early tomorrow morning, but much colder further northwards, and that air is going to sweep through, and temperature's going to be down once again, 3, 4, 5 degrees, and by Wednesday, you can see big temperature contrast, 10 degrees in the southeast, 4 or 5 degrees further northwest, and that air is going to push through, and you can see much colder to wake up on Thursday, widely around freezing or below freezing further northwards and westwards for the southeast, only 4 or 5 in the day, struggling in mid-single digits, 4 to 7 degrees widely, and much colder further northwards, of course. Beyond that, Friday morning, quite a widespread cold night, maybe not quite a widespread frost, as temperatures do look like in some areas maybe hover above freezing, but definitely will be some areas that do go below freezing. And of course, by Friday, temperatures starting to rise 8 or 9 degrees, but of course, you can see by early as of Saturday, that cold air is shifted southeastwards, milder air further northwards and westwards, but much colder to wake up for Saturday in the southeast around freezing. So you can see temperatures very much up and down over the next couple of days, and it's been a very consistent signal. Because when we get all these big low pressure systems, these storms moving through, they are fueled, of course, by temperature contrasts. And that means that within these storms, we've got big mild sectors and very cold sectors as well. And they don't normally last more than 12 hours. So we're going to see this continued pattern of it could be 10 degrees at 3 p.m. and by midnight it could be freezing, and then once again by the next day it could be 14, 15 degrees, and that's the sort of pattern we're going to be seeing with a lot of up and down conditions. And it does mean we could be seeing similar things to what we've seen recently, where as soon as the cold front moved through, we see temperatures drop significantly. As that cold front scoreline moved from yesterday, we saw temperatures drop widely 5 degrees in many areas, and we saw snow in many areas, even to low-lying areas. Of course, just in transient showers, nothing significant, but yeah, likely to see these sort of wild conditions continue. So if we do now have a look at the GFS, now you can see Storm Franklin moving out into Europe, and we see a brief ridge of high pressure, but you can see all these purples towards Iceland. That's the tropospheric polar vortex, which has been sort of the mother low, forming these storms to its southern edge, spinning up along the jet stream towards the UK. Now, if we do have a look at this, you can see we do continue to see these low pressure systems move in, but you can see that high pressure is trying to hold on in the south. And what that does is it means the centre of the lows are a bit further northwards towards Scotland or further northwards than that. And that's what we're seeing consistently over the next week or so. You can see quite cold air mass moving through later this week, wrapped up around that low, but it only, as I said, lasts a very short period of time. But if we do go back to the pressure charts, you can see high pressure towards Europe and Scandinavia trying to push against these purples. Now, if that high pressure did lose out, we would see these purples go back over the UK, very unsettled conditions. But you can see the centre of the lows just stay further northwards and westwards, over towards Iceland, not quite taking over in the UK. Towards the end of the run, a few starting to push through. Could be some real lively storms there. And you can see a storm really brewing there within the little buckle in the jet stream there. So does it like end of February, early March is going to continue to be very unsettled and maybe even stormy. But at this stage, there perhaps is hints that storm track could be shifted further northwards and westwards, reducing impacts more widely and confining it more to the north and west, where these sort of conditions are not too unusual. Of course, it still will be not great seeing 60, 70 mile per hour winds, heavy rain, but it's not going to be sort of these 80, 90 mile per hour gusts. And those, if they do form, of course, will stay further or short towards the centre of the lows, which are going to be in and around Iceland or to the south of Iceland instead of over the top of the UK. So that's perhaps one positive, that it's going to remain unsettled, but perhaps those storm tracks shifting further northwards and westwards. Now, if we do have a look at the GM run, see if that does compare, you can see very similar over the next couple of days. Again, very cold air mass moving through days this week, and again, you see that high pressure building towards Europe, holding that storm track further northwards and westwards. You see all those centre of the lows are towards Iceland. You can see it there, not as far southwards, eastwards. Now, if this pattern actually did hold off, we see the high pressure win out. You can see towards the end of the GM run, actually, high pressure starting to win out, and it's starting to pump up milder air from the south. And that could, if it did come off, introduce much milder weather, maybe mid-teens. Sunny conditions with that could feel quite spring-like, really, quite pleasant. But there is a big caveat with that, because it all depends on high pressure, low pressure positioning. If that's slightly further eastwards, we get all the storms and the showers and the weather fronts in. If it's further westwards, then we could even start to be pulling in a bit of a slack easterly wind, which won't be bitterly cold. There's not that much cold air towards the eastern Europe, but it could be a little bit chilly. So this time of year, the air mass and the direction of that air mass is very, very important. And at this stage, there's a lot of uncertainty in the longer term. But it doesn't look like it's going to be a massive, sort of dry, settled phase. Definitely high pressure trying to make more of an influence, but at this stage, still looking unsettled, jet stream dominated. Now, if we do finish up, have a look at the GFS Ensembles. You can see very much up and down over the next couple of weeks. Quite a few colder sectors, quite a few milder sectors as well. And precipitation is still plenty. Quite a cold sector moving through later this week, getting down to -7, -8 degrees at entry of the HPA, but once again lasting around 12 hours or so, so not putting too much of a dent into the temperatures. Bring temperatures down to around freezing overnight, and in the day, as I said, 5-6 degrees on Thursday, Friday time. Before we see quite a few milder air masses move through to end February and start March, but of course there will be plenty of colder sectors as well, and precipitation is still strong. If you look at the wind speeds, this is at 10 meters, so surface wind speeds meters per second. You can see very strong coming off Storm Franklin, but you can see over the next week or so there are quite a few areas of still strong winds. It's getting 6, 7, 8 meters per second, which it's by no means no winds at all. Some are going much stronger, especially perhaps around the 27th, 28th. We're seeing some there going much stronger, maybe towards 9 or 10 meters per second, and that's more likely to be potentially a more vigorous low, maybe a named storm. But at this stage, you can see there is a lot of scatter with that, and we'll have to keep an eye really on how these low pressure systems do develop. But it definitely does look like the storm track could be shifting further northwards and westwards, which will be a good thing if you are looking forward to the end of this stormy spell, which I think the majority of people are, as has caused quite a lot of disruption and devastation. And of course, I pray for anyone out there who has been significantly affected by these storms, and hopefully, fingers crossed, they do subside. As I said, storm track shifting further northwards, which is a positive. But at this stage, we can't be too sure with that because things can change very quickly. So anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you stay safe out there, and I'll see you again for another video soon.